Again, where the disconnect comes from in our society, because how is your body going to make liver and heart cells out of Lucky Charms? It's not. But eating liver and heart.
Hey guys, thank you so much for supporting us and watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more and get some of our merchandise like this awesome apron, be sure to check out our website at thecarnivorerevolution.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and my guest today is Max Gibson. He is Animal-Based Lifestyle on Instagram, and if you're not following him, do that because his pictures of hamburgers will make your mouth water. He has a successful career in finance, and he went from the SAD diet to vegan during his first attempt at getting healthy, and then he wised up and became a carnivore. Thanks for joining me, Max.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about your story. What made you switch from the SAD diet to do the right thing and be a vegan?
I think like a normal existential crisis. I was just really unhealthy, and it dawned on me, like ironically, always I was born overweight and had been that way into early adulthood, and started to have some, kind of minor nagging health issues that I attributed to just not eating vegetables, because I didn't at all. I had like the pickiest version of westernized diet of just vegetable free. The saying I always say is I used to eat Taco Bell and KFC for dinner. And that was true. Like I would frequently go to two different drive-throughs. Like I liked, the chicken from this place, but the fries from that place. And it wasn't like a healthy, well-rounded, sad diet. It was bad. I remember drinking Pepsi Plus, which was a Pepsi plus vitamins product. That was being healthy at the time. Like this was me checking some boxes and being a responsible adult. And I had a child with autism that we actually ended up having some dietary interventions with, and they worked, which I didn't expect them to, but I was like, this is a waste of time. And they worked. And I was like, oh no, like what you eat matters. Like it all kind of sunk in at once. And I just kind of successfully lied to myself for a long time, just kind of nonsensed my subconscious into not really prioritizing these things. And one day, just the glass shattered, right? And I could see through it for the first time. And that, again, kind of like the modern mainstream wisdom, if you're conscious about what you eat and you want to be healthy, it's vegetables and it's green juices and it's raw vegan. And it's as you go down this rabbit hole, we all kind of know what the standard advice is. And that was my first crack at it. And it ended terribly.
And so, like, what happened when you became vegan? Like, how did you feel? When did you realize that that was not helping you?
Thin for the first time in my life. At first it was all roses. It was fantastic. And then I started to train Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I was significantly underweight. Like I'm a relatively small, diminutive, thin, slight person now. I was probably 25 to 30 pounds lighter than I am right now. Like I'm 5'6" too, by the way. So I'm not a large person. And I went to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and all of the other small people killed me. And I was like, I think I need to eat meat. Like meat needs to make its way. Like I need strength. So I started to reincorporate meat, and even slowly. Like it was, maybe a quarter ounce at a time, like a little bit of red meat on a salad or a muscle milk, or it started to kind of the vegan commitment just really started to slip as soon as I reintroduced meat. Like it was immediately like I started gaining weight back and not body fat. Like I was putting on muscle. I was performing better in the gym. I'd never worked out in my life, by the way. Prior to going on the vegan diet, I was like John Travolta in Grease, right? Like I thought I was like too cool to work out. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm cool. I'm not gonna exercise. So I started running, like long distance running, or jogging, slowly moving. And a vegan diet, which I think is the perfect combination for like wasting away. Like, and it is very effective. Which, if that's what you're looking for, it's going to work. I thought I looked like Brad Pitt's little brother. I look like Skeletor. It was rough.
Yeah, and many people don't see that in themselves. Like when they start losing the weight or they start feeling bad, they don't realize that that's happening because of the vegan diet. They just start to think that they're sick, or they don't realize it's because of their lack of nutrition from being a vegan.
Well, I think some of it is we get told these certain foods are good. Like almond are good and green juice is good. So you go on like a green juice almond diet, which these things are loaded with anti-nutrients, lectins, which are horribly sensitive to lectins. And that's how I found out. And I'm not sure that I was before, where I really, even on transitioning to like a paleo diet, I actually started to have autoimmune reactions because I was eating just giant stir fries of just all these peppers, bell peppers, tons of nightshades with a little bit of chicken. Or, beef cooked in coconut oil. And even that, I started to develop rashes, alopecia, psoriatic arthritis, like all these issues I'd never had before. So I don't know if that was brought on by a vegan diet or kind of becoming a little better in tune with my biology made me aware of those things. Some of them didn't exist prior to. Like I would break out in rashes and all sorts of stuff as a result of the nightshades. I ended up going through courses of steroids, like oral steroids, to treat the immune reactions that I was having as a result. Transitioned to keto. I was pretty like keto paleo for probably 8 years after like 8 to 10 months ish on a vegan diet.
Now, twice you've mentioned green juices. So were you like an avid juicer? I was. I had 2 different juicers. I had an extra one I could loan out to people that I was teaching how to start juicing. Like I really thought juicing was the way. 14-day juice fast. What was your juicing journey like? Kind of the same?
I mean, I just tried to solve every problem with vegetable juice. Food Matters was a big movie. It was like the first little food documentary that a neighbor gave me, and that I was like, oh my goodness. And that goes into the Gerson therapy and David Avocado Wolf and all this stuff. So like green juice was kind of the answer. So I juiced everything, just everything, just anything you could potentially juiced it and had a lot of it.
Been there, done that. I had my whole family drinking celery juice in the mornings because medical medium said that that's what we should do. So I was doing that. I had his books, I dove into that. And at one point, like during COVID, there was a Mexican restaurant near us. I was picking up food for my family, and they had like all of these vegetables that they had gotten a wrong delivery, and they had like boxes and boxes of like organic beets and stuff, like golden beets and red beets. They had all of this stuff. And so I took a box of each thinking I'll juice it, and that night I had a quart of golden beet juice with like an apple in it. I've never been so sick. I mean, I was in the car with my husband going to his office, and we stopped in the car, like in the driveway in the parking lot, so he could talk to somebody. And all of a sudden that beet juice was coming back up, and I had to excuse myself and get out of the car and run to the other side. It was so horrible. It was like projectile. It was one of the most horrible things ever. And I had diluted the beet juice. I know you're supposed to dilute beet juice because I've had beet juice before, but it was terrible. So, like, obviously that's my body rejecting it. And then you know what I did? The next day I tried again. I just had less. Like, it takes us so long to learn, doesn't it? Don't you think it takes us a long time to learn?
I actually just heard for the first time you're supposed to dilute beet juice, which might explain some of the symptoms I had after consuming it.
Yeah, it just
use the restroom after having beet juice. Like, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And it was, the idea behind it was it's just so full of nutrients. That's why you have to dilute it, because the nutrients are just going to flood your system. And now I have different theories on why that happens with something like beet juice, one of those juices they say you're supposed to dilute. But like, I believed I was doing the right thing. And I know you did too.
I thought it was the answer, right? And I was even giving advice to, family that were having issues. It's like, you know what you need to do? Green juice. Like, I was super on it, right? And I was eating like heads of broccoli for lunch, which is like 12 calories, by the way. Raw, just like I went through like a raw, like I just would have a couple heads of broccoli for lunch, right? And I get the same looks now, but people looked at me like I was crazy then, and they look out like I'm crazy now, but it was crazy then. Like that's
what I was going to ask you is, so now that you have, now that you've been a carnivore for a little while, did your family and friends kind of look at you when you switched, just like, oh, this is just another trend he's doing, this is just another diet that he is trying? And how did you kind of move past that?
I've done enough strange things in my life that's kind of a recurring theme that, like, I just, don't listen to the haters, even if they're in the home. Not that my wife and kids and family have always been super supportive, but as soon as you start to get like grandparents, aunts, uncles, their criticisms are much more laid bare. Right? And I'll tell you, like, this is a crazy trend, which was even kind of strange because you would think I was the kid that never ate vegetables. So you would think, like, grandma'd be happy to hear I'm eating like broccoli for lunch. She was not. She's like, this is ridiculous. And thankfully, like, she was right. She was onto something. But I tend to be very extreme. I don't do things halfway. So if I'm doing something, we're doing it, right? Or we're just not doing it because I don't do things halfway. So yeah, veganism, it was pretty short, but it really did transition. I didn't go back to Hamburger Helper and Taco Bell and KFC. I really stayed in the lane of, health awareness and really trying to do my best, but there's so much nonsense out there. Alkaline water is a great example, right? Do you know how much extra expensive volcanic whatever water I bought because the alkaline, right? It's going to alkalize your blood and prevent cancer. And that's just nonsense. That's not true. That's from uh, cancer researchers studying cancer in a petri dish, not in a human body. And it turns out your, blood pH is fiercely regulated by your body or you'll die. So, and that's still, by the way, that's not common knowledge, because if you go check out the water section, they're all patting themselves on the back about how alkaline they are. Don't want your stomach to be alkaline, right? So not only do we have this manipulative marketing, but we also have a complete misunderstanding of the functions of human biology as a society.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned kind of being all or nothing, there is no like in the middle for you. Do you find that goes along with you being an abstainer or a moderator? And do you have a hard time sticking with it?
No, I don't have a hard time sticking with it. Like there's no temptation, there's no pull for like, oh, I wish I could. That doesn't exist for me. It just doesn't. But I'm not a moderator. I'm all in or all out. There's no like I'm gonna have a piece of chocolate. No, we're gonna eat the world's chocolate. There's just no halfway, no small bites, never just one drink, right? So I just don't drink. Like I can't do anything moderately, and I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse or both to some degree, because I tend to be able to stick with things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example. I've done Jiu-Jitsu for over a decade, where right, like the common thing was, oh, this is just another one of those phases. It's just another one of his phases, and I was like, well, it's been 10 years, guys. So is it all like really a phase? And I think some of that is human nature. When you watch other people around you grow, some people's knee-jerk reactions to shut that down. And I think it's common, even from people that love you and mean well for you. For whatever reason, I do hear this a lot frequently from like, hey, I've lost 60 pounds, but my mom keeps making these comments about, how I should go back the other way and do these. There's people aren't supportive. My best friends, when I would try to improve my nutrition, would offer to buy me the KFC that I was abstaining from, right? Like just a little. And it's like, it's not that they're being mean. They're my friend. They care about me. I just think there's this, I don't know, there's something in our nature that doesn't want people to outgrow us.
Yeah. And I have had a friend who, when I would drink, the on occasion, it's very rare that I have like a diet soda or something, and it's when everybody else is eating and I'm not going to eat, it takes the edge off. I feel like it bothers everybody else a lot more when I don't eat than it bothers me. So on occasion, very randomly and very rarely, I will have like a diet soda. And I had a friend say to me one time, "Good for you." And I was like, good for me. I'm poisoning myself to make everybody else in the room happy so that everybody isn't looking at me and feeling uncomfortable because I'm not eating. It's just kind of this bizarre thing. I think people feel uncomfortable. People apologize to me when they order their food and sit down with, the fries and the soda and the burger with the bun at a restaurant. People apologize to me. I'm sorry, but I'm eating the bun. I'm like, okay, eat the bun. And what I do has nothing to do with, with what you do. So I find that hard. So how do you handle things like gatherings and parties and things like that?
I'm blessed to just genuinely not really care about what other people think. Like, unless there's people I absolutely value their opinions, right? There's people who truly I do care about what they think. But generally, if you're a stranger, or if this is a minor social interaction, like I really don't care if it bothers you. I really don't care if you judge me. I really don't care if you're offended. I'm just eating a steak. And I'm not telling you that bread is bad for you, or that, I'm not critiquing your diet. I'm just living my life. And then if that bugs you, that's your problem.
Yeah. And I feel so much better the way that I am eating. I want people to just be happy for me for that, right? Like be happy for me that I feel so good. Be happy for me for the things that I have healed without at the same time kind of feeling bad for themselves. You know what I mean?
Well, I've actually had a really beneficial, like on numerous occasions, I kind of get trapped in places with people, week long work meetings where we like live on site, right? So we're stuck eating all our meals together or stuck spending time together. And their first reactions are like, oh my goodness, like here's everything that's wrong with what you're doing. And you're such a crazy person. And then after spending a week together, they're on the diet. And I've had this happen 4 or 5 different times. Even in some medical capacities where medical practitioners are like, hey, like here's every single thing that's wrong with what you're doing. And then like a nurse, I was in a facility and there was a nurse a guy who was a vegan and just was telling me everything that's wrong. By the end of it, he was asking me to write him a diet plan and that he had re-included meat in his diet and that he felt better than he ever had and all sorts of stuff. So it's really good. Sometimes people just watch what you're doing. They'll
Yeah,
kind
if
of see
people
what you're doing is working. So
say that one more time.
I was saying, people watch and just see. You don't need to say anything. Just be the example, live your life, and if what you're doing is working, it's gonna prove itself.
And what I notice is in places like Facebook groups and on Instagram, people want to like bash us, right, for the foods that we're eating and the hamburgers and how the meat's going to kill us, but they don't question their diet or other people's diets when they're eating regular fast food with the bun, and the sugar-filled ketchup and all the stuff on it with the fries and the soda. People think that's normal, but really the way you and I are eating is what's normal. It's what our ancestors ate years ago before we had all the fast food and all the artificial ingredients and the processed foods and the seed oils.
Well, and that's again where the disconnect comes from in our society, because how is your body going to make liver and heart cells out of Lucky Charms? It's not. But eating liver and heart, that's weird. But coenzyme Q10 is an amazing, vitamin, and like everybody's grandpa takes it. But where does it come from? Right? Heart, the number one source of this nutrient is animal. So I think people really fundamentally just don't understand how our bodies work. And they think that we should just have all of like these lavish desserts and modern fanciful things, and they just don't know how we live without them. And for me, I don't see them as food, which is why I'm not like, oh, I can't believe I can't have Captain Crunch. Like, Captain Crunch is not food. It's a doorstopper. It's decoration. It's not something I'm going to eat. So I don't feel tempted to eat it and change Captain Crunch out with any processed food that whatever. I don't view it as food. And the problem is everyone else does. And even the health recommendations are kind of manipulated by our sick society, because meat, right? Well, in conjunction with, the modern population, which is give or take 90% metabolically unwell. So if you're in this 90% majority, meat is contributing to like a detrimental health outcome. So we have to recommend nobody eat meat. And it's like, shouldn't you recommend everybody does what the other 10% do, instead of recommending that the 10% be like the 90% of unhealthy people? And this is completely lost contextually, even when we're talking about the current research and science, because it's basing us against the population. The population's sick. The population's dying. The population's hurting. And all of the recommendations are to keep us in the status quo with 87 to 92% of metabolically unwell adults in the United States. So even then, when you're talking to someone, well, meat's bad. Have you seen the latest study? Yeah, it's comparing, it's studying sick people, right? The people they're looking at are not me, and their outcomes do not apply to me because I do not live the life those people do.
Yeah, and I've had people say to me, "Don't you just want to be normal? Don't you want to just eat normally?" And when I look around and I see normal, why would I want to eat normally? What I'm doing has made me well. It's made me well physically and mentally. Why would I want to go back to that?
Yeah, I would 100% agree to the same. When I was normal, I had normal anxiety. Well, probably not normal anxiety, diagnosis and stuff, but it was pretty bad. But what I've eaten's gotten rid of that, right? And if you've ever been to like a really deep, dark depression, coming out of it is money. Like it's amazing. And what I eat contributes to, in one way or another, my mental health. And mine got pretty bad. I mean, it was rough. I've Googled things so dark that Google didn't answer the question. They gave me a phone number and were like, call these people. And I have been well beyond that since my diet. And I've been through incredibly stressful things, traumatic, horrible life events, death of loved ones, all sorts of stuff. And not the same anxiety and depression that I had when everything was roses. And, I was essentially poisoning my brain. It's just where my inflammation expressed itself was in my brain, which resulted in kind of some psychiatric issues.
And after we become carnivore, many of us start doing other things. Some people call it like biohacking, like things to help you live longer, things to make you healthier. Do you do any of those kinds of things now?
My knee-jerk reaction is to say no, but I'm wearing an Aura ring. I track my sleep. I've been wearing this for over 3 years. I wear red light or blue light blocking glasses after the sun goes down. I use the sauna. I have a Juve light. So yeah, I do some biohacking stuff, but a lot of it, more important, the things that I place more value on are the things that are free: the sun, the earth, clean water, right? Like I literally moved to a town where the water's cleaner because the place that I lived previously was poisoned by Monsanto. Higher cancer rates, quite well documented. So it's like, cool, can't go to the river. So like I've moved to a place that has clean air, that has clean water. I live in a town of less than 600 people, right? There's not a lot to do on a Friday night, but man, the water's clean, the air's clean. I think those things are way more important than a fancy little gadget or a sauna. Saunas are cool. Love saunas. I mean, I own one. I have one. It's great. But again, that's mimicking a natural process. It's unnatural to be at the same temperature all the time. So I use this sauna to get hot, which is something that would happen naturally on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've seen some of your posts and I see that you carry your kettlebells with you and you do your exercises in your lunch break. How do you work that out? And do you think do the people that you work with think you're insane?
I think they do think I'm insane. They unfortunately all work for me, so they can't say that because I'm everybody's boss that I interact with on a daily basis. I work in like a really corporate environment. It's a giant billion-dollar company, and I don't tell them what I'm doing. Like, hey, I'm going to lunch. I'll see you later. And I don't use my legal name on any of my social media, so I'm not too easy to figure out. Like, you guys all might know what I'm doing at lunch, but for the most part, I leave kind of dressed in very professional attire and show up kind of sweaty in very professional attire. I carry little short shorts and kettlebells and a hot plate and cast iron skillets and exercise bands and all sorts of stuff. I travel with it. And I'm not even in the same office. It's not like I have an office and a space. I'm in a different town. I'll look at a map and find a body of water and go get a kettlebell exercise.
That's really cool.
A life changer.
Yeah, I love my kettlebell. So what about like macros? Do you pay attention to macros? Do you ever count anything, see how much you're eating?
Well, I've worked as a certified personal trainer before, right? So I've had a lot of experience in terms of counting and tracking and macros. So I don't count, but got a pretty good idea of what I've eaten at any given time. So I do prioritize protein, primarily in terms of macros. I've got a pretty good awareness of what protein I eat on a daily basis and some kind of fat minimums I'm looking for, but that's about it. I don't track, but I'm likely aware.
And what about like book recommendations? Do you do a lot of reading?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. I actually like old school media, like a real book. Like I can't read on a Kindle or on my phone. Weston A. Price's Physical Degeneration and Nutrition, or Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, rather, is probably one of my favorite books of all time. It's just fantastic. The Ancestral Diet Revolution by Chris Kenobi is another one that I'm reading recently that's very good. The GAPS Diet by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. Lies My Doctor Told Me by Ken Berry. Sean Baker, Paul Saladino. I'm always looking for a good book to read. I've got a pretty big list.
And did you jump right in? And how do you recommend to people who want to get started? Do you recommend they jump right in or that they wean themselves off carbs? What do you say about that?
Yeah, it depends on where you're coming from. So I've worked with clients in a professional capacity, even in working them to a carnivore diet. And yeah, if you go from like a high carb, high fiber diet to a carnivore diet, you're going to have some dietary distress. That's always where you kind of get those worst cases of diarrhea, which for some people can be a real deal breaker, especially depending on the circumstances in their life. One person I worked with was a touring musician, and having chronic diarrhea when you're playing a show in front of a crowd is not ideal. So in his case, we actually had to, kind of reintroduce some carbs and kind of step him down before we could move into a full on carnivore.
And if you
the transition from keto, if you're coming from keto, I find it a pretty smooth and easy transition. You're fat adapted. You're likely to be getting a little bit less fiber depending on, how much greens you're having on your version of a keto diet. So for me, the transition from keto to carnivore was very smooth. I really didn't have any issues at all.
And so if you had one piece of advice for somebody who is thinking about making a change and just wants to be healthier, what would your one piece of advice be?
Just try it out. Give it 30 days. See how you feel.